What is up, people? It is Monster58. Welcome back to another video review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the SH Monsterarts Godzilla x Kong, the New Empire, Suko, and Mothra from, obviously, the 2024 film Godzilla x Kong, the New Empire. And I'll be honest with you guys, the main reason I picked this up was for Suko, because I did want, like, a little bit of a representation of him on my figure display, and Mothra was just kind of like a bonus, because I already have a Mothra. I actually have the Hayatoys Mothra, and that is based on the King of the Monsters version of Mothra, which I like the color scheme of more than I do here. But I'll say I was pleasantly surprised by this Mothra from Bandai, but we'll obviously get into that when we get into the review. But again, my main focus was getting Suko here. And so taking a look at the box here, you can see that it is a very nice box. You have this nice purple with, the yellow sort of, gradient yellow to purple. You have the nice product shots of, obviously, of Suko as well as Mothra. You have the nice Monsterverse logo up here. Have all the nice logos, Legendary, Toho. You got the Godzilla logo there. Bandai, Tamashii Nations, and obviously the Bandai Namco logo in the upper right as well. And then when we take the box, we take a look up here. You can see some more nice text here, very similar to what we've seen here. Take a look on the bottom, just some more, standardized, product stuff. Then you have some more nice text here on the side with another different product shot of both Suko as well as Mothra here as well. Then you have some more text here on this side as well. Godzilla, SH Monsterarts, excuse me, Suko and Mothra. And then finally you have your obligatory product shots. You also see he comes with a face for Kong, and we'll obviously deal with that when we get to the review. But overall, when it comes to the box, I really do love the SH Monsterarts box art. I think they do a fantastic job of just sort of laying it all out and just making it look really pretty. And yeah, I think that's really it for the box. And so without further ado, alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we have the SH Monsterarts Godzilla x Kong, the New Empire, Suko, and Mothra from the 2024 film out of the box. And I gotta say, guys, this is one thing that kind of threw me off, was the size of Suko, actually. We'll get into Suko in a bit, but we're gonna actually hit on Mothra first. But it's just, to me, I thought Suko would be a little bit taller, and you'll see that when we compare him to Kong. He is actually, from what I've, just looking at screenshots of the film, again, it's been a minute since I've seen the film, and looking at, like, sort of size charts in general, he is relatively the correct size. I just thought he would be maybe just a little bit taller. But first things first, we're going to get the easier one to review and the one I have the least to say about out of the way first, and let's get Mothra. So we're going to take Suko, put him off to the side for a minute, and let's take a look at Mothra. Now, Mothra, like I told you guys, was a big surprise for me. So you do get this stand here, and the reason we're going to talk about this, obviously, I'm going to show it off here. You can obviously display her without the stand, but why would you? She's an aerial, monster. Why would you display it without a stand? But we have her stand here. It's pretty fine. It's the standard SH Monsterarts stuff that you'll come to know. But overall, it's pretty solid. Like, there's nothing crazy about it. It's just a stand. And so when we take a look at Mothra herself, the one thing that definitely surprised me, so the way you can just put her on there is you have this little hook section, and then you can just sort of hook it into the center of her body. And essentially, like, her abdomen, I guess you would call it right there. Yeah, you can do that. But taking a look at Mothra herself, the thing that really surprised me was her wings. Her wings are actually really nice in terms of how they're painted. And I think, I'm not exactly sure how this is done, but for the most part, I think it looks really good. You can see all that awesome looking detail. It looks great across her body. But for me, this is where, like, I guess the surprise ends, because even though the wings are really well done, you can see very, very nice. The body, although it looks fine, and then you do have the very nicely painted eyes as well, it doesn't really do anything else beyond that. It looks really nice. It's a surprise in that way, because I hated the paint on the previous Mothra releases from SH Monsterarts, which is why I bought the Haya one that had a way more accurate paint scheme. But when we're looking at this, it's actually pretty well done, and I think it represents what we did see on screen with Mothra in the 2024 film relatively nicely. Not like super accurate, but they got the general hue and the color scheme relatively correct, and so I can't complain about that too much. And so when we're taking a look at her, I mean, I think she looks fine. Like I said, the wings look really, really good. The body looks okay. The eyes are nicely painted. It's just after, like, the surprise, because I was expecting, I feel bad for saying this, I was expecting, like, it not to be very accurate or very well done. It pleasantly surprised me. And so we're going to put her back on here for the time being. And what we're going to do is we're going to just set her off to the side real quick and just do a very quick size comparison. So here she is. First things first, here's my de facto comparison. Here she is with the Transformers Legacy United Infernac Deluxe Class Infernac Universe Magnus. As you can see, she is a very decent size. Like, she's going to be a tiny monster, especially when you're comparing her to the other monsters in the Monsterverse. She's relatively small. And so, looking at this, you can see how she compares to, like, an average size deluxe Transformers figure. So if you have a Transformers figure that's a deluxe size, you have an idea of how big she is. Pretty solid size. Nothing too crazy, and especially because the monsters are only getting sort of bigger and bigger. Like Godzilla from the first film in 2014 all the way up until now is way bigger than he was, and same thing for Kong, is he is like twice the size he was in Kong Skull Island. And so to have her this size, it works for me. And so, guys, for a more relevant size comparison, here she is with the Godzilla X Kong, the first Godzilla X Kong figure with the axe, and I actually put the gauntlet arm because I don't think it, like, yeah, the color is, like, it's noticeable, but if you're not looking at it super detailed, especially when you have a bunch of other things on the shelf, this doesn't really stand out as, like, the arm doesn't stand out as super, like, discolored from the rest of his body. So overall, you can see this is a relatively good size. This is about how big Mothra was. Maybe she could be a tad larger, but like I said, when I compared her to Magnus, overall, I feel that her actual size is nothing that I'm too worried or complaining about. Alrighty, folks, and it's time to show off her articulation, as well as the articulation in the stand. So you can do stuff like this. You have another arm here, and then the other part of this also kind of twists a teeny bit. But we're going to take a look at Mothra herself. We'll remove her. What I'll say, be very careful, because she's tiny. Like her body, and so her joints just kind of move back and forth, like every single one of them just moves back and forth a little bit, but they're so thin. I mean, I don't know how well you can see how thin those parts are, but I mean, when you're looking at it from the front, these are like paper thin, and do not like force these at all. I tend to have heavy hands, so for me, I'm trying to be extra careful. Then the wings, they can go up and down like so. They can twist as well, like so. Both of them can do the same thing on either side. So overall, when it comes to the articulation, you're going to get what you want out of Mothra. It's nothing crazy, it's nothing spectacular, and I'll say when it comes to the articulation, you just want to be very careful with how you're handling her, because she is so small, and all of her joints and such are just so small, right? Like all of her limbs, excuse me. I don't want people going in and snapping them, because lo and behold, for the next review, I accidentally snapped something, and that was totally my fault, but we'll obviously get into that when we get to the next review. But with Mothra out of the way, I guess some final thoughts real quick on Mothra. A nice surprise because of how well the wings were done, and relatively the hue and the color is relatively well done and accurate to the film. It's just nothing that blows me away, because I liked and preferred the color scheme that she had in King of the Monsters, and so I got the Haya one, which represented that color scheme, and since of all of the monsters, she's one that hasn't changed size, that is the sort of definitive Mothra I have in my collection for the Monsterverse, at least for the time being, because I think it's just well done. And so yeah, just wanted to give those thoughts here. But with Mothra out of the way, we're going to talk about Suko next. Alrighty, folks, here we have the SH Monsterarts Godzilla X Kong The New Empire Suko figure. Now, this is one where the size definitely threw me off. This is sort of a similar situation. For those of you who know Dragon Ball has had a recent series called Daima, where essentially this is the last of the series that the series creator Akira Toriyama was able to work on before he sadly passed away. And in that series, essentially, it's very similar to Dragon Ball GT. And in that series, essentially, Goku gets turned into a child. He gets reverted back to a child, and same in this series where Goku, Vegeta, and a lot of the main cast end up getting reverted to children. And so obviously they're going to be releasing SH Figuarts figures to represent their kid forms. And I'll say, very similar to my reaction with those figures when I saw them in person, because I didn't buy them online, and as you can see, I don't have reviews of them on my channel. The size threw me off. It was smaller than I expected, and the same thing here with Suko. Is when I'm looking at, when I got him out of the box, I was like, he's that tiny, but when you look at him and compare him to Kong, you'll see why. But taking a look at the details, actually, surprisingly, given how small he is, the head is actually very well detailed. The eyes are pretty well painted for the most part. He's got that nice scar on his right eye, and everything is just pretty nice. I mean, the fur looks pretty good, and going down to his body, I mean, it's accurate. There's nothing here that, like, I would say is inaccurate. I think his proportions are pretty well done, and it's just, to me, I will also say this, it's kind of similar to Scar King. It's not that his face is bad, it's just that it's also kind of strange. I don't know also what is wrong with his face, and it's not that it's Scar King for me. There was something significantly wrong with his face, but I couldn't put my finger on it. This guy, his face looks fine and accurate how he was in the film, but I think when you're taking a realistic, like, character, right? A character that's very much something that you can compare to real life because he's just a giant monkey, right? His face just looks weird when you translate it to like a physical toy form. I don't know if that's the correct way of me describing why I think this guy looks so weird in his face a bit. It's not that it's bad or as bad as Skarking. It's fine and it's accurate. It's just again, translating it to a toy form just, I don't know, makes it look a bit funky. But overall, when it comes to how this guy looks in terms of the details, I mean, it is accurate to how it was in the show. I mean, the show in the movie, and I can't complain otherwise. But again, that size throws me off, and so we're gonna actually get to that size. So we're gonna zoom back out. We are going to set little Suko off to the side here, and you guys will get to see exactly how small this guy is in comparison to Kong, because it's kind of jarring. Alrighty, folks, here he is with the SH Monsterarts Kong from the Godzilla X Kong, the first one, but obviously he's retained the same size, at least in the figure form, throughout all of the major films of the figures that he's been in. So taking a look at this, you can see that Suko is about the size of Kong's leg, and then when you look at the actual film, yeah, he is about the size of Kong's leg, but when you're putting it in the figure form like this, it definitely throws you off with, like, the actual size. Like, it's very similar to, like, oh, you know how big an actual person is, like, as a wrestling fan. Like, you know how big some of these people are, and then when you see them in real life, you get thrown off. You're like, oh my god, like, I knew that was big, but it's that big. Same thing here. When I saw his size, I was like, oh, he's really that tiny, man? That's really small. And then when you get it here, it's like, oh, that is the correct size, isn't it? So for the most part, even though I'm not necessarily mad about the size, it definitely threw me off, especially until I looked at the actual comparisons online. So, although it may throw you off, it certainly is accurate, and yeah, I don't have any complaints regarding the actual scale because it's accurate. It's a lot tinier than people may expect. Alrighty, folks, it's time to get into the articulation. And when it comes to this guy's articulation, it's not amazing. And I think part the reason why it's not is because he's so damn tiny. Like, don't get me wrong, it's pretty good, but it's nothing like jaw-dropping or anything like that. And part of me, like, again, you have this tiny figure, joints are going to be so tiny, like, it's hard to put a lot of articulation into something so small. But taking a look, you can see the head can do a full 360, which is nice. You can look a little bit down and up, but nothing crazy, but a little bit down and up enough. Full 360 with the arms. You have more than 90 at the elbow, which is real nice. You have, like, that is actually pretty good. And then you have wrist articulation, but what I will say is they're on ball joints. These come off pretty easily, so just be careful with them. Not super easily, not like the recent Godzilla Evolved figure, but this one certainly, knocking them a little bit too hard can loosen them pretty easily. You do have ab crunch, which is real nice. You can get a little bit of side to side here as well, which is really, really nice. You do have technically full waist because you can do a full 360 there. Your legs can kick forward, but the legs are the worst part in my opinion. The legs can kick kind of back, but they kind of twist. And then you have bend at the knee, and then you have a little bit of ankle pivot because they are ball joints. But overall, what I will say is the articulation, while not amazing, it's pretty good for how small he is. It's just like there's limiting factors to it because he is so tiny, and the joints can only be so big and move him in certain ways. And wow, he is already... Sometimes this guy's a hard time standing up. But I will say this, you can absolutely get him in the standard gorilla pose where he is... with his knuckles on the ground, and I'll show that off at some point here. But you can absolutely get him in the pose where he is that standard gorilla pose with knuckles on the ground. So overall articulation is just fine, especially given his size. Alrighty, folks, it's time to get into the accessories of little Suko here. So he comes with 3 different faces, 3 pairs of hands, and a stand base with 2 different abilities for said stand. 2 different arms, excuse me, for said stand. So taking a look at the faces, you have the first one here I'll point out is you have the one where he's screaming and he's angry. You can use this for a multitude of different things, but it's really easy to remove and to be able to replace. So if we take the head, you can just remove it like that, and then you can just peg it on like that, and very, very simple. I'll actually say his accessories go on relatively easily, so that's very nice. So you can remove that, and then we'll just put that back, and then we will put the normal head that I had back on, the standard head that he came with in the actual, that he was out of the box with. Next face that you have is a worried face. He has like that sort of puppy eyes, whimpering face that he has in like the trailers and stuff like that. There you go. That's it. Looks pretty good. Again, given how tiny it is, the details are pretty well done for how small it is. So that's pretty nice. And then you do have the like open mouth face worry, so he's got his mouth slightly ajar. It does look pretty good too. Like overall, Yeah, it looks pretty nice. Sorry about the lighting there, but yeah, it looks pretty nice overall. You can see the eyes are painted really well. He has that really worried face on it. It looks pretty solid. And then he comes with pairs of hands, and these are going to be hard to show, so I'll do my best. He comes with the standard ones he comes with are these open palm ones. God, you can see them there, pretty nicely painted, pretty well done. So he comes with a pair of these. Then he comes with a pair of sort of the same but similar hands, but they're more like gripping hands and stuff like that. So you can see those right there. Those look pretty nice as well. And then finally, you actually come with a funny pair of hands. You come with like these pair of hands where he's like taunting Kong, because he kind of taunts Kong in the beginning of the film when he first meets him, and he kind of like you know, he does this, like this movement, right? And so you have a pair of hands for both of those. And so to replace the hands, very simple. You just remove the hand there, and then you can just place the hand like so. And then now you have a new hand for little Suko here. And overall, when it comes to how this guy looks, again, I am pretty okay with it. Like, and all the accessories are pretty good. And then when it comes to the stands, so you have a couple different stands here. So we'll put the fist back on here. The stands are, well, you have one stand base, and then you have a couple of different options on the arm. So this is more or less like for him to go in the gorilla pose, and I just knocked him down. This is for him to go into that gorilla pose. And this is a pretty nice stand. It has nice points of articulation. So you have the base here, and then you have an arm here, then you have another point of articulation right here, and then it can also bend, right? So really, really nice overall. So the way that the instructions show you is you would have it like this, and then you just wrap it around his waist, and then you can have him in the gorilla pose. But funnily enough, you don't need the stand to actually have him hold the gorilla pose. He holds it just fine on standing under his own weight and under his own power. Then you can just remove this, and then you can get the other one. Just be careful when you're removing this. You can get the other one as well, and this one is supposed to clip onto his ankle, and you can essentially get like jumping poses, which is a very welcome surprise. You know, usually unless it's a flying, you know, aerial, you know, figure, you know, monster or something like that, usually you don't get stands like this, and so it's nice. So you can see it actually holds him pretty nicely. We'll clip it onto sort of his calf. But yeah, you can see it holds him pretty nicely. So if you want to get some aerial shots, which I definitely will get like one or two in the actual pictures, yeah, overall, I think it's pretty nice there. So pretty cool that you get multiple options, because it's always nice to have multiple options, right? As someone who, you know, displays stuff and collects things, and for those of you who are watching, I assume you also display and collect figurines like I do. So have multiple options for a display is always nice to see. Alrighty, folks, and the final accessory that he comes with, and I apologize if this seems a little disjointed. I forgot to record it in the main part of the review, so this is being recorded after I've already done the outro to the review, but I'm going to say this doesn't really change my opinions, so if you, whatever opinions you hear at the end, even though that was recorded before this, my opinions don't really change. But the last accessory that this guy comes with, that the whole set comes with, is a new head for Kong, and it's one of those things where it's very similar to the arm, where it is discolored from this body, but the only difference with this and the one I currently have on him is actually just the tooth. So you can see the tooth is, let's see if we can get it to focus. You can see the tooth right there is the one where they had to replace it because he was getting an infection and whatnot. And so it does look really cool, but when you're comparing both of these faces, they're the exact same. I mean, we're going to do that. Like, look, they're literally the exact same. The only difference is really that the tooth. And overall, it's kind of lame because, I mean, you, like, the only extra detail is that tooth. And even though it is nice to get accessories for other figures with other figures, right? So you can have more options for display with your other figures. And Kong, stand, my man, please. There we that's one issue I have with my Kong, is the frickin' ankle joints are loose, but he stands perfectly fine in his display too, which sucks. But yeah, even though it's nice to get accessories with other figures, for other figures, so that you can have more options for display, especially if you have those figures, to have the heads basically be the same. I mean, and like I said, they're the exact same, just the difference is the tooth. It's kind of a little bit of a shame. Like, I get why, because they have to do it in the way of it's more accurate to how he was in Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. But it does feel a little bit hollow when you consider that you essentially got the same face just a couple years earlier, just with a different tooth. Alrighty, and so guys, for my final and concluding thoughts on the SH Monsterarts, Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, Suko, and Mothra from the 2024 film Godzilla X Kong The New Empire, this is an okay set. The major issue I'm going to tell you about this set is actually when it comes to the price. The price of this was about $90, and I'm going to tell you this right now. This doesn't feel like $90 given how small these figures are. They're very small, they're kind of fragile, and that was why I had sort of emphasized the sizes of both of these figures, although I don't necessarily complain about it with relative to the scale of the actual film, and again, relative to the other figures that we've gotten. In terms of the actual amount of plastic and like stuff that you get, I don't see where this is worth $90, maybe 60 at the end of the day, and that's my biggest gripe with this set. Overall though, when it comes to the figures, I guess my major disappointments would be the fact that both of them being so tiny, their articulation is kind of limited in the sense that you kind of don't want to articulate them as much as you'd like to because they're so tiny. They can be so fragile and easy to break. And especially when you get this out of the box, not Mothra necessarily will throw you off with the size. I think Suko will. He's just really small. And again, like I said, he is accurate to how he was in the movie in terms of his size in comparison to Kong. But the size definitely, begs to want, you want a bit more than that. I was thinking he might be like a head or so taller and a little bit chunkier than he actually was. But no, he's pretty small overall. And then when we're getting to the actual figures themselves, like I said, Mothra's was a nice surprise in terms of how the wings looked, but the body just doesn't look like all that amazing. Like, sure, the hue of the paint's relatively accurate, but it's nothing crazy or anything like that. And when it comes to Suko, although his proportions are very fine, even though the face is pretty accurate, just like there was with Scar King, there's something wrong with it. And I don't know exactly what's wrong with it. I just think it looks a little bit creepy. There's something that's kind of off-putting about it. And like I said, I think it might be that situation where it's taking a realistic CGI, monkey and then turning it into an actual figure, or just essentially taking a monkey and turning it into a figure. It just kind of, and especially when you're trying to give it emotion, it kind of results in something that can be a little bit scary and creepy, rather than, more like an adorable character that we saw in the actual movie. But overall, when it comes to a score, I'm going to give this a 7 out of 10. I just don't think it's worth the amount of money that it is. Even with the amount of accessories that you get with Suko, you get the stands and everything like that. It's just, to me, there's still not enough plastic here that feels like it's worth $90. Again, I think 60, maybe 70 is a more reasonable price for both of these figures, because I guarantee if you handed these figures to someone without telling them how much they were, they would assume that they were 20 or 30 bucks each a piece, because they're just too tiny. They don't come with too much. Like Mothra doesn't come with anything besides the stand. And even though that Suko comes with a fair bit of things, his size, again, it just feels a little bit too small. Not that the scale is wrong, just feels a little bit too small. Would I recommend this? Only if you get a sale. The reason I got it is because I want a representation of Suko, and that's literally the only reason. And so for me, essentially spending $90 for just Suko is kind of like a throwaway. So I would wait for a sale for this if you're going to get it, or if you can eventually find someone who will just sell you Suko instead of the whole set as a whole, then I would go for that as well. But I did pick mine up on the Big Bad Toy Store, so leave a link in the description to that. Also leave links to Amazon as well, so you guys can take a look there if this set is on there as well. And so I think that's really it. So I thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. Please like, comment, rate, and subscribe. Share this video with your friends, and also follow me in the socials. Those will be linked in the description below. And with that, guys, and once again, thank you so much for taking the time to watch this video review, and I'll catch you on the next one. Hope you guys have a wonderful day. Peace.